The color of your skin is not a random accident. It is the result of 200,000 years of pressure, and according to a study published just last year, that pressure has not stopped. It is speeding up. Right now, your body is carrying the record of every climate your ancestors survived, every migration they completed, every season that almost killed them. It is written into your melanin, your eye color, your hair. And when scientists recently sequenced 16,000 human genomes, they found something that overturns one of the most common assumptions in modern biology. We have not stopped evolving. If anything, the pace has increased. But to understand why that is remarkable, you have to go back to the beginning. And the beginning looks nothing like what most people expect. Every person alive today shares ancestors who came out of Africa roughly 70,000 years ago. Those ancestors, all of them, had dark skin. Not medium, not olive, not tan. Dark. High concentration of melanin. And that was not cosmetic. It was survival. Think of melanin as armor. Not the kind of armor that stops a sword, the kind that intercepts radiation before it reaches the machinery underneath. Your skin is the outermost layer of a system that has to last a lifetime, and the sun, specifically the ultraviolet part of sunlight, is one of the most persistent threats that system faces. Ultraviolet B radiation can penetrate the outer layers of skin and damage the DNA inside living cells. It can also break down folate, a B vitamin that your body needs to build new cells and to sustain a pregnancy. Too much UVB and reproduction becomes more difficult. The species does not continue. Near the equator, sunlight is intense. The angle of the Earth means UV hits directly, at full strength, every single day of the year. Dark skin, packed with melanin, absorbs and scatters that radiation before it can break down folate or damage cells beneath. The more melanin your skin produces, the more protected you are. In equatorial Africa, high melanin was not an aesthetic trait. It was the entry requirement for staying alive long enough to have children. There are actually two types of melanin. Eumelanin gives skin and hair brown and black tones. Pheomelanin gives red and yellow tones. What you see when you look at the range of human skin colors is not a spectrum from primitive to advanced. It is the ratio of those two molecules, adjusted over thousands of generations to match the UV levels where those generations lived. That is the whole engine. The rest follows from that. Now here is where the story gets complicated. Because humans did not stay near the equator, over tens of thousands of years, groups slowly moved. North through the Middle East, east across Asia, west across Europe, south through coastlines that no longer look the same on a modern map. And as they moved, the sunlight changed. Farther from the equator, the sun hits at a shallower angle, more atmosphere to pass through, less ultraviolet reaching the ground. In the far north, especially in winter, UVB levels drop to nearly nothing. And this is where dark skin became a liability. Your body synthesizes vitamin D through a process that requires UVB to hit the skin and trigger a reaction in the cells below. Without enough vitamin D, you cannot properly absorb calcium. Your bones weaken. In children, this causes rickets, bones that bend and deform under the weight of the body. In adults, it raises the risk of fractures, immune dysfunction, and a long list of downstream effects. In a world without supplements, without fortified food, without medical care, vitamin D deficiency was not a minor inconvenience. It was a death sentence delivered slowly over generations. Dark skin blocks UVB. In Africa, that is exactly what you want. In Northern Europe, that same protection becomes a problem. The very armor that kept your equatorial ancestors alive was now preventing the photons that synthesize the molecule your northern body desperately needed. So evolution found a solution. Skin that produces less melanin lets more UVB through. More UVB means more vitamin D synthesis. More vitamin D means healthier bones, better immune function, better reproductive outcomes. Over 30,000 to 15,000 years, populations in Europe and parts of East Asia underwent selection for lower melanin. Lighter skin was not superior. It was locally calibrated. The same way you would turn up the thermostat in a colder house. Not because warm is better than cold, but because the situation changed. If you are finding this as interesting as I do, this idea that your body is a document written by environments you never lived in, this channel is exactly the place to keep exploring that. Subscribing takes 2 seconds and means you will see the next one. Now, here is the part that trips people up. If low UV is what drives selection for light skin, why do the Inuit, the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, living under some of the weakest sunlight on Earth, have relatively dark skin? This is sometimes called the Eskimo paradox, and it is one of the most important lessons in how evolution actually works. The answer is diet. Inuit populations have, for thousands of years, eaten large quantities of fish, marine mammals, and organ meat. These foods are exceptionally rich in vitamin D. Fatty fish like salmon and mackerel contain more vitamin D per gram than almost anything else humans can eat. If your diet is reliably solving the vitamin D problem, there is no selection pressure pushing your skin toward lighter pigmentation. The biological problem has a cultural solution. Evolution does not push a dial that culture has already turned. What this tells us is that evolution is not running a single algorithm. It is solving a problem in whatever way works. Change the diet, you change the pressure. Change the pressure, you change what survives. The Inuit are not an exception to the theory. They are evidence that the theory is correct, that it is always about the problem being solved, not about any particular trait being universally better. The same logic extends to eyes and hair. And this is where the scale of the story becomes strange. Every person alive today with blue eyes is the descendant of a single individual. One person. A mutation in a gene called OCA2, which controls the production of melanin in the iris, arose somewhere in the Scandinavian Baltic region approximately 10,000 years ago. Before that mutation, there were no blue eyes on Earth. Every blue-eyed person alive, whether they are from Sweden or Brazil or South Korea, whether their ancestors traveled by boat or walked across continents, traces that specific trait back to one genetic event in one person, roughly 400 generations ago. Blue eyes do not offer a survival advantage that has been clearly identified. They may have spread through sexual selection, a preference that became self-reinforcing once it existed, or through what geneticists call a founder effect, where a small population with a particular trait expands rapidly and carries that trait to a large number of descendants. Whatever the mechanism, the origin is singular. You are, quite literally, walking around with a piece of one person's DNA in your irises. Red hair follows a different path, but leads to a similarly specific place. The gene is MC1R. It affects how melanocytes, the cells that produce melanin, behave. Variants in MC1R shift the balance from eumelanin toward pheomelanin, producing the red and auburn tones and the characteristically fair, freckled skin that comes with them. Red hair is concentrated most heavily in Scotland and Ireland, with frequencies unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. The current leading hypothesis is that in extremely low UV environments, where even fair skin struggles to synthesize enough vitamin D, pheomelanin may offer an alternative pathway, a different way to extract what little UV is available. Not a perfect solution, a workable one. In biology, workable is enough. Now we arrive at the part of the story that was not in any textbook when most people learned this subject. In April 2026, a team of researchers published a study in the journal Nature Human Behavior. They analyzed the genomic data of 16,000 individuals, looking for signals of natural selection across the last 10,000 years of human history. The hypothesis going in was that selection had probably slowed, that with agriculture, medicine, and global trade reducing the lethality of any particular environmental stress, evolution was running at a lower gear. They expected the data to show a gradual quieting of the signal. They found the opposite. The rate of natural selection over the last 10,000 years appears to have accelerated relative to earlier periods. Several traits showed particularly strong signals. Red hair phenotypes became more common under positive selection. Not random genetic drift, but actual selection pressure favoring the MC1R variants. Male pattern baldness showed a negative selection signal, meaning the genetics associated with early hair loss became less common over time, suggesting it carries some cost to reproductive success. Body fat distribution shifted. And perhaps most striking, signatures appeared for selection against susceptibility to HIV and leprosy, two diseases that in their most devastating historical periods would have imposed exactly the kind of survival pressure needed to reshape a population's genetics over many generations. The implication is uncomfortable in the best possible way. We built medicine, agriculture, and cities, and told ourselves that evolution was something that happened to our ancestors, something that had slowed or stopped or no longer applied to us in the way it once did. The genomic data says otherwise. The pressure did not lift, it changed shape. New diseases, new dietary landscapes, new social structures, all of them created new selection gradients, and the human genome responded, is still responding, has been responding the entire time we were building libraries and hospitals and telling ourselves the story that we were done. You are not the endpoint of human evolution. You are a snapshot. A frame in a process that has been running for 2 million years and is, according to the best current evidence, running faster than it has in a very long time. The color of your skin is the record of every place your ancestors lived under a particular sky. Your eye color is the inheritance of a single mutation that someone carried 10,000 years ago in a place that was probably cold and dark most of the year. Your hair color is a solution your lineage found to a UV problem that no one at the time could have named. All of it is not cosmetic. All of it is functional information written in biology, recording a story that started long before anyone was around to tell it. And if that changes how you see yourself when you look in the mirror, good. That is the point. Drop a comment. What color are your eyes? And does knowing that you may share a single ancestor with every blue-eyed person on Earth change how that feels? I read all of them. And if you want to keep pulling on threads like this, the science underneath the things everyone takes for granted, subscribe. The next one is already worth your time.